The Galactic Council had seen many strange things in their 10,000 years of recorded history. They had witnessed the rise and fall of empires. They had watched stars die and new ones be born. They had catalogued over 40,000 sentient species across the known universe, but nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared them for the humans. Ambassador Crixel of the Zorthian Empire was the first to formally meet the human delegation when their strange little ship came tumbling out of what they called a hyperspace jump near the Andromeda station. The ship was small, barely larger than a Zorthian cargo shuttle, and it looked like it had been held together with hope and determination rather than proper engineering. When the airlock opened, Crixel expected to see hardened warriors or cold scientists. What he got instead was a group of 5 soft-skinned bipeds wearing colorful clothing and carrying what appeared to be gifts. The leader, a female human with dark curly hair named Captain Sarah Chen, immediately smiled at him and extended her hand. "Hello there, we come in peace. We brought cookies." Crixel had no idea what cookies were. His translation device struggled with the concept. But when Captain Chen opened a container and offered him a small brown disc that smelled of something sweet, he found himself accepting it. The taste was unlike anything he had ever experienced. "This is acceptable," he said, though in truth he wanted to ask for more. The humans seemed delighted by this response. They all made a noise that Crixel later learned was called laughing, and began chattering among themselves. One of them, a younger male with red hair, reached out and patted Crixel on what passed for his shoulder. "I like this guy," the human said. "He's got good taste." Crixel did not know how to respond to being liked so quickly. In Zorthian culture, trust took years to build. Friendships were formal agreements that required paperwork and witnesses, but these humans seemed to hand out their affection like it cost them nothing at all. This was Crixel's first introduction to what the galaxy would later call pack bonding, and it would change everything. The Galactic Council met 3 standard cycles later to discuss the human situation. Representatives from over 200 species gathered in the Great Hall of the Council station, all of them curious about the new arrivals. The Vellani, a species of tall crystalline beings, had prepared a formal report. "The humans are confusing," Representative Shalmir stated, her crystals flickering with uncertainty. "They appear to be a predator species based on their biology, but they do not behave like predators. They show their teeth when they are happy instead of when they are threatening. They make strange sounds at small creatures and attempt to touch everything they find appealing." A murmur went through the assembly. The Krethi delegation, a species of large insectoids who prided themselves on logical behavior, clicked their mandibles in confusion. "Why would a predator show weakness to prey?" asked High Speaker Chitter. "It makes no evolutionary sense." "That is precisely the mystery," Shalmir continued. "We have observed them on their ship. They have brought creatures with them, non-sentient animals from their homeworld. They care for these animals. They feed them, groom them, and speak to them as if they could understand." "What kind of creatures?" asked Ambassador Crixel, who had been thinking about cookies and shoulder pats ever since his first meeting. "Several types. There is a small furry one they call a cat that does nothing but sleep and demand food. There is a larger furry one called a dog that follows the humans everywhere and seems to exist in a state of constant joy. And there are small aquatic creatures in a glass container that serve no apparent purpose whatsoever." The council chamber fell silent. No species in the known galaxy kept animals for no practical purpose. Livestock was kept for food. Beasts of burden were kept for labor, but keeping animals simply to have them, it was unheard of. "Perhaps they are food reserves," suggested the Morathi delegate, a gelatinous being that communicated through color changes. We asked. They were horrified by the suggestion. The captain became visibly distressed and held the cat close to her chest while the dog made threatening noises at our observer. The translator rendered her response as "Mittens is a princess, not a snack." more confused murmuring. The concept of declaring a non-sentient creature to be royalty was beyond the council's understanding. What none of them realized yet was that this strange behavior, this pack bonding, was not limited to animals. The humans seemed capable of forming emotional attachments to almost anything, and soon, the entire galaxy would experience this phenomenon firsthand. The first sign of trouble came when a human engineer named Marcus was assigned to help repair the environmental systems on Andromeda Station. The station had been experiencing problems with its air recycling unit for months, but the various species aboard had simply adapted to the slightly stale atmosphere. No one had bothered to fix it because no one had formed any particular attachment to breathing comfortable air. Marcus spent 3 days climbing through maintenance tunnels and getting covered in synthetic dust. When he finally found the problem, a clogged filter that had been ignored for years, he fixed it in less than an hour. When the fresh air began flowing again, the residents of the station were confused by his emotional response. "Good girl," Marcus said to the air recycling unit, patting its metal casing fondly. "You just needed a little love, didn't you? Don't worry, I won't let them neglect you again." A young Velani technician named Prism was watching this interaction with great curiosity. "The machine is not sentient," she said. "It cannot hear you." "I know," Marcus said, smiling at her. "But that doesn't mean she doesn't deserve some appreciation. She works hard keeping everyone alive." Prism's crystals flickered in a way that indicated deep thought. "You have assigned it a gender and a personality. Based on what criteria?" "No criteria, just felt right." Marcus wiped his hands on his work suit and looked at Prism. "Hey, you want to grab some food? I've been crawling around in here for hours and I'm starving." Prism had no social obligations to this human. They had only just met. By Velani standards, sharing a meal was an act reserved for family or close associates of at least 50 years. But something about the casual warmth in Marcus's voice made her respond before she could think it through. "That would be acceptable," she said. Marcus grinned at her. "Great. I heard the food court on level 7 has something that's supposed to be like pizza. Probably won't be, but it's worth a shot. Come on, new friend." New friend. Prism had never been called that before. She followed the human toward the food court, her crystals glowing a color she did not recognize. Later, she would learn it was the Velani equivalent of feeling warm inside. Word spread quickly through the station about the strange human behaviors. The Krethi guards reported that the human security officer had started nomming their patrol drones. The maintenance staff noted that human engineers were talking to their tools and thanking them after use. Most disturbing of all, the humans seemed to be making friends everywhere they went. Ambassador Crixel found himself thinking about the cookie incident more and more. He had eaten many things in his long diplomatic career, but no one had ever simply given him food before without expecting something in return. The gesture confused him. It also made him feel something he could not quite identify. He decided to conduct his own investigation. He approached Captain Chen during one of her visits to the diplomatic quarter and asked her directly, "Why did you give me the cookie?" Captain Chen looked surprised by the question. "Because I had cookies and you were there. Sharing food is how humans say, 'I want to be friendly,' without making a big deal of it." "But you did not know me. I could have been an enemy." "You could have been," she agreed. "But you weren't shooting at us, so I figured we could start with assuming you were nice until you proved otherwise. That's generally how we do things." Crixel considered this. In Zorthian diplomacy, everyone was assumed to be an enemy until extensive negotiations proved otherwise. The human approach seemed dangerously naive, and yet, here he was, not shooting at them, feeling vaguely pleased about having been given a cookie. "Your species is very strange," he said finally. "I've been told," Captain Chen replied with a laugh. Then she did something that startled him. She reached into her pocket and pulled out another cookie. "Here, Because we're already friends now and friends share. Crixel took the cookie. He did not know how to process being declared a friend so easily, but he also did not give the cookie back. The council held another meeting 2 weeks later. This time, the reports were even more confusing. The humans have formed social bonds with 17 different species so far, Representative Shalmir announced. They have given names to station equipment. They have adopted a stray cleaning bot that was scheduled for recycling. They have started what they call a book club, with members from 6 species who have never voluntarily spent time together before. "What is a book club?" asked High Speaker Chitter. "It appears to be a gathering where individuals read the same text and then discuss it while consuming beverages. There is no practical purpose. They simply enjoy each other's company." The Morathi delegate pulsed a confused color. "They gather for no reason." "For friendship," Shalmir clarified. "They consider this a reason." The truly alarming part was that other species were starting to participate. Prism the Velani had been seen laughing, actually laughing, with the human Marcus. Several Krethi guards had started calling their patrol drones by the names the humans had given them. A Morathi elder had joined the book club and was reportedly having feelings about fictional characters. "This is spreading," High Speaker Chitter said, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "The humans are somehow contaminating other species with their friendliness," Ambassador Crixel supplied. He had eaten 4 more cookies since his conversation with Captain Chen. He had also started calling the air recycling unit by her name, Angela, when no one was watching. "This is a serious matter," Chitter insisted. "Social structures are the foundation of civilization. If everyone starts acting like humans, there will be chaos." "Or perhaps," said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber, "there will be something better." Everyone turned to look. It was the Morathi elder who had joined the book club. Their colors were swirling in a pattern no one had seen before, soft and warm, like a sunset on a water world. "I have lived for 300 years, the elder said. "In all that time, I have never experienced what the humans call joy until 2 weeks ago. A human named Jessica told me my color patterns were beautiful. No one has ever said that to me before. No one has ever thought to say it." The chamber fell silent. The Morathi were known for their emotional restraint. To hear one speak of joy was unprecedented. "Perhaps," the elder continued, "we have been so focused on efficiency and logic and survival that we forgot to live. The humans remember, and now they are reminding us." The council did not know what to do with this statement. It was too emotional, too unscientific. But several members found themselves thinking about it long after the meeting ended. On the human ship, things were getting complicated in a different way. Captain Chen was trying to explain to the Galactic Council's observer why her crew had adopted the broken cleaning bot. "His name is Dusty," she said, gesturing to the small machine that was currently sitting in a corner, occasionally sparking. "He was going to be scrapped just because one of his wheels doesn't work right anymore." The observer, a rigid Krethi named Click, struggled to understand. "It is a machine. Machines are replaced when they malfunction. This is logical." "That's cruel," said Jessica, the human who had complimented the Morathi elder. She was currently sitting on the floor next to Dusty, adjusting something on his sensor array. "He didn't ask to be broken. He's still trying to clean things, look." She pointed to a small smear on the floor where Dusty had been attempting to work despite his damaged wheel. "It does not try," Click said. "It executes programming." "Same thing," Marcus said from across the room. "We all execute programming of some kind. Doesn't mean we don't deserve a chance." Click watched as the humans gathered around the malfunctioning machine, making encouraging sounds as it wobbled around attempting to clean. One of them had tied a small ribbon around Dusty's antenna. Another had painted a tiny smile face on his front panel. "You have damaged Galactic Council property," Click observed. "We made him cuter," Captain Chen corrected. There's a difference. Dusty beeped happily and bumped into Click's leg before wobbling away to clean another spot. Click found himself watching the little machine go, and for a moment, just a brief moment, he felt something that might have been fondness. He quickly suppressed it. This human contamination was becoming serious. But later that night, when no one was watching, Click found himself in the maintenance bay where all the damaged cleaning bots were stored awaiting recycling. There were dozens of them, silent and still, their lights dark. "This is illogical," he muttered to himself as he powered one of them on. The small machine whirred to life, looked around, and immediately bumped into a wall. One of its sensors was clearly broken. "I will call you, Bump," Click said quietly. Then he spent the next 3 hours fixing Bump's wheel so the little bot could clean properly again. When he returned to his quarters that night, Click told no one what he had done. But he found himself thinking about Bump often, wondering if the little bot was okay, hoping someone would be kind to it. The pack bonding had claimed another victim. 3 months after the humans arrived, Andromeda Station was a different place. The changes were small at first, little things that seemed insignificant on their own, but added up to something remarkable. The cold metal corridors now had small potted plants placed at regular intervals. The humans had started this, bringing cuttings from their ship's garden, but soon other species began contributing. The Vellani added crystal flowers that hummed gently. The Morathi cultivated bioluminescent moss that glowed soft colors in the dark. A Krethi guard, trying to understand the appeal, placed a rock in a small pot and was surprised when everyone praised his contribution. The food court on level 7 had transformed into something remarkable. What had once been a utilitarian space where species sat separately and ate quickly had become a place of gathering. Tables were pushed together. Species mixed freely. The noise level had increased because people were talking to each other, not about business or politics, but about their days, their feelings, their hopes. Captain Chen stood in the middle of it all, watching with a quiet smile on her face. She had not expected this when they set out from Earth. The mission had been simple: make first contact, establish diplomatic relations, see if humanity had a place in the larger galactic community. What they had found instead was a galaxy that had forgotten how to be happy. "You look thoughtful," Ambassador Crixel said, appearing beside her. He had taken to seeking her out for what he called cookie meetings, but which were really just conversations about nothing in particular. He had learned to enjoy conversations about nothing in particular. "Just wondering if this is what we were meant to bring to the stars," Chen said. "We thought it would be technology or trade or military alliance, but maybe what the galaxy really needed was this." "This?" Crixel asked. "Connection, warmth. The idea that it's okay to care about things just because you care about them." She gestured around the food court. "Look at them. 3 months ago, a Vellani and a Morathi would never share a table. Now Prism and Elder Bloom are arguing about which character in their book club novel made the right choice." Crixel looked. Indeed, Prism's crystals were flickering rapidly, while Elder Bloom pulsed argumentative colors. Both of them seemed to be enjoying themselves immensely. "The Council is concerned," Crixel admitted. "They do not understand what is happening. Some of them fear it." "Fear what? People being nice to each other." "Change. The galaxy has operated on certain principles for thousands of years. Species keep to themselves. Relationships are formal. Emotions are managed. Your people are disrupting all of that simply by being kind." Chen laughed. "I guess kindness is pretty disruptive when you're not used to it." The conversation was interrupted by a commotion near one of the tables. They turned to see Jessica standing on a chair, holding something small and furry above her head, while a crowd gathered around her. Everyone, listen. Mittens had kittens, we have bobbies." The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had never shown interest in Earth animals before suddenly pressed forward to see the tiny creatures. Mittens, the ship's cat, was surrounded by beings many times her size, all of them making soft sounds of wonder. "They are very small," observed a Cretha who had pushed to the front. It was Click, the council observer. "And fragile, their eyes are not even open." "That's because they're only a few days old," Jessica explained. "They need to be kept warm and fed and protected." "Will you protect them?" Click asked. "Of course, they're our bobbies now. Well, Mitten's bobbies, but she's family, so they're family too." Click's mandibles moved in a way that indicated deep thought. "You adopt responsibility for creatures that cannot survive without you, even though they contribute nothing, even though they will likely cause problems and require resources." "That's what family does," Marcus said, having joined the crowd. "You don't love someone because they're useful. You love them because they exist and they're yours." Something in Click seemed to shift. He looked down at the tiny kitten that Jessica had placed in his forelimbs. The creature was warm and soft and made a small squeaking noise as it tried to find its mother. It was completely helpless. It was completely trusting. "I will protect this one," Click said suddenly. "I will name it Spark, because its fur is the color of electricity." A cheer went up from the humans. Jessica hugged Click before he could stop her, and he found that he did not entirely want her to stop. "Welcome to the pack," she said. The news spread across the station within hours. The Cretha observer had claimed a kitten. By the next day, there were 27 requests from various species asking if they too could have one of Mitten's bobbies when they were old enough. Some species that had never interacted with Earth animals were suddenly researching what cats needed to thrive. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. "This has gone too far," High Speaker Chitter announced. "A Krethi has claimed a pet. A pet. We do not form attachments to lesser creatures. It is against our nature." "With respect," came Click's voice from across the chamber, "I do not believe it is against my nature. I believe it was suppressed in my nature. The humans have simply shown me that it was always there." "You cannot keep a cat," Chitter insisted. "It is inappropriate for your station." "I can and I will. Spark needs me." Click paused. "I also need Spark. I did not know I could feel this way about another being. But now that I do, I will not give it up simply because it makes the council uncomfortable." A murmur went through the assembly. This was unprecedented. No one had ever defied the council for an emotional reason before. "The humans are corrupting us," someone said. "The humans are healing us," Elder Bloom countered. Their colors had grown brighter since joining the book club. They had made friends. They had felt joy. They were not willing to go back to the way things were. "We have spent 10,000 years building a civilization based on logic and efficiency. And what do we have to show for it? Cold stations filled with strangers who never learned each other's names." "We have order," Chitter said. "We have loneliness," Bloom replied. "I am 300 years old. Until the humans came, no one had ever told me I was beautiful. No one had ever asked what my favorite story was. No one had ever simply wanted to spend time with me for no reason at all. Is that the civilization we want? One where no one ever learns to care?" The chamber fell silent. For the first time, the council did not have a logical response. The months that followed were turbulent. The Galactic Council split into factions, those who embraced the changes the humans had brought and those who resisted them. Debates raged across dozens of star systems. Some species withdrew from council politics entirely, retreating to their homeworlds to consider what kind of future they wanted. But something remarkable was happening on the ground level, in the stations and outposts and trading hubs where ordinary beings lived their daily lives. The pack bonding was spreading, and it could not be stopped by any council decree. On the mining station Orbital 7, a human engineer named David had started teaching Krethi workers how to play card games during their breaks. Within weeks, the breaks had become the highlight of the work cycle. Productivity actually increased because the workers had something to look forward to. On the agricultural world Verdant Prime, human settlers had introduced the concept of picnics to the local Florani population. The Florani, a plant-based species, had always eaten alone because sharing nutrients seemed inefficient. Now families and friends gathered to enjoy meals together, and the Florani were discovering what it meant to have memorable moments with loved ones. On ships traveling between systems, human crew members decorated their quarters with photographs and trinkets and items of sentimental value. Their alien colleagues, initially confused by this behavior, began to do the same. Soon it became common to see Vellani crystals arranged in patterns that reminded their owners of home, or Morathi tanks decorated with small, colorful stones that had no purpose except to be pretty. The galaxy was getting softer, warmer, more connected, and some beings were not happy about it. High Speaker Chitter had assembled a coalition of traditionalists who believed the old ways were better. They called themselves the Pure Logic Movement, and their message was simple. Emotions were weakness, attachment was inefficiency, and the humans had to be stopped before they corrupted the entire galaxy. "We must expel the humans from Council space," Chitter announced at a gathering of his followers. "They are a social contagion. Their friendliness is spreading like a disease. If we do not act now, our children will grow up soft. They will name their tools and keep pets and waste resources on frivolous activities like fun." His followers clicked their agreement. They had prepared a formal motion to present to the council. They were confident it would pass. But when the day came to present the motion, something unexpected happened. The chamber was packed. Every species in the council had sent representatives, and many had brought guests, beings who were not politicians but who had asked to be present for this historic moment. The galleries were full of faces from across the galaxy. Vellani who glowed with anticipation, Morathi whose colors swirled with nervous energy, Krethi who had brought their pets despite the formal setting. Click was there with Spark, now a healthy young cat who seemed completely unimpressed by the political significance of the moment. Prism was there with Marcus, their hands intertwined in a gesture that would have been scandalous a year ago, but now seemed perfectly natural. Ambassador Crixel was there with a pocket full of cookies, ready to share them with whoever needed comfort. Captain Chen stood at the center of the chamber, facing High Speaker Chitter. She had been invited to speak in defense of humanity before the vote was taken. "High Speaker," she began, "you say that humans are a contagion, that our friendliness is spreading like a disease. I would ask you to look around this chamber and tell me what symptoms you see." Chitter looked. He saw beings holding hands and sitting close together. He saw a Florani sharing nutrients with a Morathi through a specially designed tube. He saw a Zorthian ambassador feeding treats to a small Earth dog that had somehow made its way into the proceedings. "I see chaos," he said. "I see disorder. I see the breakdown of proper social structures." "I see community," Chen replied. "I see beings who have found something they did not know they were missing. I see a galaxy learning to love." "Love is inefficient," Chitter snapped. "Maybe, but it makes life worth living." Chen stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. "When we left Earth, we did not know what we would find out here. We expected challenges, dangers, maybe war. What we found instead was a galaxy that had everything except the one thing that matters most: connection." She gestured to the assembled beings. "Look at what you have built together. 10,000 years of progress, faster than light travel, stations that orbit distant stars, medical technology that extends lives by centuries, and yet none of you were happy. None of you knew what it felt like to be truly cared for. We humans are not perfect. We fight and argue and make mistakes, but we know how to love. We know how to hold on to each other when times get hard. We know how to find joy in small moments and share it with everyone around us. That is what we brought to the stars. Not technology or weapons or power, just heart." The chamber was silent. Even Chitter seemed affected by her words, though he tried not to show it. "You can vote to expel us," Chen continued. "You can try to go back to the way things were, but I do not think you will succeed, because now you know what it feels like to have friends. Now you know what it means to care about something just because it exists. Can you really give that up?" Ambassador Crixel stood. "I was the first to meet the humans," he said. "I remember thinking they were strange because they gave me food for no reason. I did not understand kindness then. I do now. I vote against expulsion." Click stood next, cradling Spark in his arms. "I was sent to observe the humans and report on the threat they posed. I found no threat. I found only people who wanted to share their joy with the universe. I vote against expulsion." One by one, delegates rose to speak. Elder Bloom spoke of finding purpose in friendship after centuries of isolation. Prism spoke of discovering love in a form she had never imagined possible. A Florani representative spoke of how picnics had transformed their society from a collection of individuals into a true community. When the vote was finally taken, the pure logic movement was defeated by an overwhelming margin. The humans would stay. High Speaker Chitter stood alone at his podium, watching his coalition crumble. For the first time in his long career, he did not know what to do. Everything he believed about the proper order of society was being challenged. Captain Chen approached him after the session ended. "You know," she said gently, "being wrong is not a failure. It is an opportunity to grow." "I do not know how to grow," Chitter admitted. "I have spent my entire life building walls. I do not know how to tear them down." Chen smiled. "That is okay. You do not have to do it alone. Would you like to join us for dinner? There is a new restaurant on level 7 that serves something almost like pizza. It is pretty good, actually." Chitter hesitated. Every instinct he had told him to refuse, to retreat into his familiar patterns, to keep his distance from these strange, warm, impossible humans. But there was another feeling now, one he could not quite name. It felt like curiosity, or maybe longing, or maybe just the first stirring of something that might eventually become hope. "I will try the pizza," he said finally. Chen's smile grew wider. "Excellent. Welcome to the pack, High Speaker." 5 years after the humans arrived at Andromeda Station, the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The changes were visible everywhere you looked, from the smallest outpost to the grandest planetary capital. The cold metal corridors of space stations now featured murals painted by multi-species art collectives. Community gardens flourished in what had once been empty storage bays. Music filled public spaces, compositions that blended sounds from 100 different worlds into something entirely new and beautiful. Pets had become common across the galaxy. Not just Earth animals, though those remained popular, but creatures from countless worlds that species had begun to appreciate for their companionship rather than their utility. The Krethi had discovered a particular fondness for a small, fuzzy creature from the Velani homeworld that made a humming noise when content. The Morathi had adopted Earth goldfish in enormous numbers, fascinated by their simple beauty. Holidays were invented and celebrated. Different species shared their traditions with each other, and new traditions were created that belonged to no one world, but to the galactic community as a whole. There was a day of appreciation where everyone told someone why they mattered. There was a festival of lights where every station and ship displayed decorations that glowed in the darkness of space. There was even a galaxy-wide pet day, where beings shared images of their animal companions across the communication networks. Ambassador Crixel, now one of the most respected diplomats in the galaxy, stood before a gathering of young beings who had traveled from dozens of worlds to learn about interspecies relations. His teaching method had evolved considerably since his first meeting with the humans. "The first lesson of diplomacy," he said, "is to bring snacks." The students looked confused. This was not what the textbook said. "I am serious," Crixel continued, pulling a container from his bag. "Sharing food is a universal act of trust. It says, I want to know you. I want to be your friend. I am not a threat. These little cookies have done more for galactic peace than any treaty I have ever negotiated." He passed the cookies around. Every student took one, even those whose biology did not allow them to digest human food. They would keep the cookies as symbols, as reminders of this moment. "The second lesson," Crixel said, "is to name things. Name your ship, name your tools, name the maintenance drone that cleans your hallway. When you give something a name, you give it value. You say, 'You matter enough for me to think about you.' This is how bonds begin." A young Krethi raised a limb. High Speaker Chitter said that was illogical. "High Speaker Chitter now has 3 cats and a garden full of flowers he has named individually," Crixel replied with what might have been a smile. "He also just married Captain Chen in what the humans call an interspecies ceremony. Logic is useful, young one, but it is not everything." Across the station, that very ceremony was being celebrated. It had started as a small gathering, but had grown into something massive as word spread. Beings who had never met the couple came simply to witness what had become a symbol of the new galaxy, a galaxy where love crossed all boundaries. Captain Sarah Chen stood beside High Speaker Chitter, just Chitter now, since he had retired from politics to focus on more important things. She wore a dress that blended human and Krethi design elements. He wore ribbons in his traditional colors, but also a small pin shaped like a cat that Spark had allegedly helped choose. "I never thought I would find love on a space station," Chen said during her vows, "let alone with someone from a completely different species who thought emotions were inefficient. But that is the thing about love, it does not follow rules. It just happens, and if you are brave enough to accept it, it changes everything." "I spent my life believing that attachment was weakness," Chitter responded. "I was wrong. Attachment is strength. It gives us something to fight for, something to protect, something to come home to. Sarah taught me that. Her whole species taught the galaxy that. We are all better for knowing them." The crowd cheered. Species that had been enemies for centuries stood side by side, celebrating together. Children of different worlds played together near the refreshment table, their parents watching with expressions that transcended species, the universal look of beings who were happy. Marcus and Prism were there, along with their adopted children, a human boy they had found orphaned on a frontier colony, and a young Velani who had been rejected by her family for her unusual crystal formation. They had built something beautiful together, a family that proved love knew no boundaries. Click was there with his growing collection of cats, each one named and cherished. He had become an advocate for animal welfare across the galaxy, fighting to ensure that no creature would ever be discarded simply for being broken or different. Elder Bloom was there, their colors the brightest they had ever been. They had written 17 books since meeting the humans, stories and poems and philosophical treatises about the nature of connection. Their work was required reading in schools across 100 worlds. Jessica was there, still making friends everywhere she went, still telling beings they were beautiful, still changing lives with nothing more than genuine kindness. And in the corner, still wobbling a little despite numerous repairs, was Dusty, the little cleaning bot that had started it all. Someone had given him a tiny bow tie for the occasion. He beeped happily as he made his rounds, cleaning up crumbs from the celebration, doing the only job he had ever known but doing it now as part of a family that loved him. As the celebration continued, Captain Chen, now just Sarah, found a quiet moment on a balcony overlooking the stars. The galaxy stretched out before her, vast and ancient and full of wonders. "Thinking deep thoughts?" Chitter asked, joining her. "Just grateful," she said. "When we left Earth, I had no idea what we would find. I thought maybe we would discover technology beyond our imagination, or resources that would change human civilization, or dangers that would threaten our existence. And instead we found people. Different shapes, different sizes, different ways of thinking, but people. And all of them were lonely just like us. All of them were looking for connection just like us. We just showed them it was okay to want it. Chitter reached out and took her hand. It had taken him months to learn this gesture, to understand that sometimes physical contact was just a way of saying, I am here. Now it felt as natural as breathing. The galaxy got cuter overnight, he said. What? Something Elder Bloom said once. They were describing what the humans had done to our civilization. They said the galaxy got cuter overnight. Softer, gentler, more full of small joys and silly moments and things that make no practical sense but make life worth living. Sarah laughed. I suppose that is one way to put it. It is the truth. Before you came, we had built a civilization that could span the stars but could not span the distance between two hearts. You taught us how to close that distance. You taught us how to love. Behind them, the party continued. Laughter echoed through the halls. Music played, a composition that blended sounds from Earth and Kreth and Villani Prime and a dozen other worlds. Someone had started a conga line that included at least 15 different species. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still misunderstandings, still beings who resisted change. But there was also hope now, more hope than there had ever been. Because now everyone knew the secret that humans had always known, that love was not a weakness but the greatest strength of all. Humanity had brought pack bonding to the stars, and the galaxy, against all odds and expectations, had become something beautiful. It had become, at last, a family. And somewhere, in a corner of the celebration hall, a little broken cleaning bot with a bow tie beeped happily, loved beyond all reason, doing his best work for the people who had given him a name and a home and a place in the universe. Good boy, Dusty, good boy.